Here comes 5 things to look for before you enter a trade, guys. In this video, we're going to discuss the following and then some. We're going to talk about not placing a trade unless you have some sort of catalyst behind what it is you're trading. We'll discuss in a minute. Relative volume, so important when it comes to being on the right side of a trade, and discussing as well, where are you wrong? Make sure you know where you're wrong first, and then we're backwards from there. Stick around. Number 4 and number 5 could be the most important. Let's get started here. Neil's going to kick things off. When we talk about what we need to do before we trade, Neil, where do we start?
Start with a reason. And look, the reason, we say catalyst, and that can be numerous things. The first thing that pops into everybody's mind is, okay, well, is there news on a given stock? And we put out our free watch list every single day, and you can see on our morning movers, you'll have Robinhood, and this is going to be after they reported earnings. Nvidia is going to be after earnings. But then, you have here, regulatory issues with some of the Chinese listed names over in the U.S., and that can be a catalyst as well. It could be specific news like or like an event like Tesla here with their AI day. And if I scroll down to some small cap stocks that we have here, you could get earnings forecasts for those small movers as well. And you can also get stock specific news, once again, expanding a dental care line for a small cap name. So these can be many and they can be varied. And obviously news is going to matter, but let's not act as if the only catalyst is going to be news. You could come in and there could just be a massive level break or a big sort of key level that's actionable for you. And maybe you're watching something on a daily time frame and you've been waiting for a stock to get, say, above a big time key level that was all kinds of support. And then once it breaches that, that's your catalyst. Your catalyst was price action, extreme price action that you saw in the pre-market. But the important thing is you should have something, right? I mean, if there's no news on the stock, if it isn't trading at a level of interest or back towards a level of interest that you were highlighting from before, if there isn't something extra going on there, then you probably don't have a lot of big time opportunities with it. So you start from that catalyst. We always tend to think news is a good place to go, especially during earnings season. It's very, very important to make sure that there are other eyeballs on the stock. That's where supply and demand gets interesting. That's where one of the other keys that we're about to get to in a second becomes highlighted. It all starts with a catalyst. Have your own watch list, of course. We got a free one. We put it out for a reason. We trade all the names on that list, Sean.
Yeah, exactly. Watch list, sticky note at Trader TV. Sean, you can find that as well. Very popular resource. And then the next one we're going to talk about is relative volume. And that just means, the volume it's doing relative to the volume it normally does, right? And so, again, if you look here, and again, most of the stuff with relative volume is going to be catalyst-based, right? So I think that's something that's very, very important. Just to touch points 1 and point 2, very, very similar. We have Macy's here today. Reason why we're looking at it, we did have some nice volume here off earnings. And if you look today, this is today's pre-market volume. Let's just have a look at yesterday's pre-market volume, right? So you could see yesterday almost nothing. And then today we know that we got some fire because at least there's earnings and there's some opportunities here to trade. And then now today you're doing 72 million shares. And on relative volume too, you do want to look for big, huge volume spikes that happen throughout the day. Many stocks that are doing higher volume will have some of these high volume spikes. So again, you want to look out to see that's that wick to the high breaking through 21 right there, right? So it does give you some sort of an indication, but catalyst. So number 1 and number 2, both very, very similar. That's your catalyst, and then relative volume is where you want to look there. I could do number 3. Why don't we do number 3 as well? Where are you going to be wrong, right? And I think that's something that's super, super important when you're looking at trades. Where am I wrong? Where am I right? Things like that, right? I'm going to go over to another stock here, KSS today, where we actually took these 50 breaks. And Neil and I never enter a trade or a position unless we have an out, okay? And I think that's something that's super, super important when we're looking to place a trade. Remember, these are 5 things to look at when you place a trade. So right here is a good example. In the pre-market, we take 53s. Then this is KSS. We already know we want the long. The catalyst is there. Better earnings than expected. You're seeing a nice little move to the upside. So we take a long again. And then we just put a long down here at 50. Why at 50? Because again, a key level. So right there, if it breaks 50, that's like a psychological level. I don't want to be in the name if it breaks through 50. So right there, that's one indication that we're looking at. And then if you look here, so that's just the even dollar value. And then I can pull this back out a little bit here, and we go all the way back. And sometimes this is what you have to do, looking at a little bit of a longer time frame here, where you're trying to find some bottoms. And to me, it touched off 50 here. I mean, really, 49.75, 49.50, kind of the same areas, but we support 50 pretty good. So when we get that dip coming from 57 all the way back down to 50, I mean, it touches 49 a couple days ago, but it's that 50 level that we're really looking at here. Sorry, that's this morning on KSS. So you got to go back and find some levels. We chose 50. So know where you're wrong. Use expanded time frames to try to find some key levels.
Have a reason why a stock should be moving on the day, which in turn should provide more volume than it normally trades within the session. Then before we even think about hitting a buy or sell key, we have to understand, where are we wrong? If the trade doesn't work, where is our stop going to be? And therefore, how much are we going to be risking on the trade? The next step, guys, number 4 here is going to be obviously, okay, let's get in the trade. How do we figure out where to get in the trade?
Absolutely. So entries, look, you don't find a way to get in. It doesn't matter what direction you think the stock is going to go. Like you have to buy it for a long somewhere. You got to sell it for short. And I always start in the higher time frame. I'm going to use the same example on this SONN. When I started out this morning, it was on our watch list. It was a gap up play, but it's a small cap. It has a history of fading in. So to say it was going to favor the short side, that's where I started out. But then that area of interest that I mentioned, I saw this gapping up and not taking out these recent highs. So it doesn't really get through that 275 bag holder level. My eyes caught the attention of 145, this cluster right here, 145 into 175. It hung out there for a couple of months before that last little bit of a breakdown. So, when you get price acceptance like that, that's a good starting point for an area of interest. So it's gapped up. And the trade that I'm looking for, here's a gap up, a failure when retail comes in. That was right here at 210. It goes right down into that 175 range, tries to bounce, makes another push into 175. And once it's failed through here, my first shorts are entering in front of 175. Where am I out? In these shorts, it's going to be that 175. You're getting in front of it. What was the bottom end of that range that I was talking about and just showed you on the daily chart? That was at 145. That level holds up here in the pre-market, so entries in front of the 75, exits on the way down to 145. Entries in front of 175. These are dark pool prints that got dumped in here, late prints, so it never actually broke 75, and then back down towards the bottom. What happens when it holds at the open? It then breaks that range, walk away from the trade, and then enter off of another level. What was the other area of interest? Remember, the rollover at 210, right here into that 210 range when it had the 7 move to the downside. So I wait for it to test those levels, and then I'm shorting off of that 2 to 210 area basically the rest of the session with the same targets in mind. 175 from resistance into support, so we cover in front of that. On the bottom end of it, where am I covering in the bottom end of the move? Down in front of that 145 again. So you identify these target areas. If you're a scalp trader, a lot of times you know the range that you're playing with. You might not be sitting there holding on for dear life like a breakout trade on a momentum stock, but on a small cap, you can use the range identified to give you support, resistance, to give you target exits. And, if I'm scalping and I know where my out is, I just try to get as good of a price close to it as I can possibly do that. And there, the higher time frame is where it all started for me with the entries.
Yep, exactly. So that's tip number 4. Then tip number 5, we'll go with potential traps. So it's a trap. So, I think I got a good example here with Disney, and that is that, you got to really be looking at where you're going to be, like Neil just said, where are you wrong on something? And I think right here it makes a little bit of, where you're wrong is one example, but right here as a trap where it's kind of setting you up to sort of mislead you into what you think. And we talked about this on the show a couple times, and that is this top here of 190, right? So Disney comes out, and let me just zoom in a little bit. We've talked a lot about, intraday trades, but what about something that if you're looking for a day trade, right? You're looking to make a little bit of money here on a day trade. So look at this. Disney rips up here right into past support. So it's resistance in this situation. So it rips right back into this 190. People thinking, oh, we've broken out. You get a big move here. I missed some of these bottoms. The key about this is be patient. You didn't miss anything. Sometimes you got to wait. It's worth paying up a little bit more sometimes so you don't get into this trap. Traders may be wanting to sell these levels. That's why it's resistance, right? You can see every time it came up here, bang, back down, bang again, down. Like these is like triple, 3 times, 4 times tops right here. Even if you go a little bit lower, 189. We saw this a whole bunch of times. So sometimes we get, I don't want to call it FOMO, but it's a little excited because we see this move up. We're like, oh, it's going to break, and we get in a little bit earlier. Wait till it breaks. So to me, this was a great trap on Disney. They trapped people high, and then that part of that is cause now with this downward move. As this starts to move down, it's traders that are trapped here to say, ah, man, you know, I bought the highs and I'm wrong. And then all of a sudden you're able to get out all the way down here. And the same thing I think may be happening right now. You can see Disney starting to tick back up here. So people that are maybe thinking this is a short breakdown, you got to watch out for these key levels. Make sure that you're not caught at areas of support and resistance. So for me, that's tip number 5, guys. Potential traps, and watch out. You got to sometimes go to a higher frame to see these.
This video, guys, could realistically be called Trading 101, because if you follow these 5 steps that we just provided to you, not only will you have better entries and exits, but you will have better trades overall. Those are 5 keys to finding and executing better trades overall. Guys, here's Valeria.
Hey guys, thank you for sharing this important information. Dear viewers, please subscribe to this channel to see more great videos.